Hey everyone, I'm reviewing the Spyderco Techno. Now I did a bit of a quick look at this earlier in the year when I was loaned this and a bunch of other Spydercos just to kind of have a look at as part of a pass around. I managed to obtain my own. Initially it didn't really make a strong impression on me. I really didn't think about the knife a great deal after that until I saw it in a really well priced Facebook sale. So I picked one up, I pulled the trigger. So the Spyderco Techno, I've done a look at it with its Sleesh brethren, but let's just recap. So it's a Marcin Sleesh designed knife. He is a Polish knife maker and designer, and he also designs these two other Spydercos. As you can see, as far as the Spyderco designs go, he's a fan of titanium, of thumb hole opening cutouts. He's definitely fond of CTS XHP in these two. This one is LC200N, being the Spider Chef. So let's compare it to some other knives that we may not yet have seen. So this is it next to a Boca Mini Quaken. Okay. This is it next to a Quiet Carry The West knife. So it's about the same size as that. This is it next to the Cold Steel American Lawman. This is it next to the Kaiser Gemini. I got lots of titanium handled knives at the minute, not on purpose. This is it next to the Spyderco Police. There we go. And this is it next to the CRKT Pilar. There we go. So it is a small knife, without a doubt. So the Spyderco Techno has been around for a while, and it's actually now the oldest of the Sleesh designs to be still being sold by Spyderco. So right now you can currently get the Techno and the Spidey Chef. The Sleesh buoy is discontinued as of 2017. There is, I'm aware, a Techno 2 coming out based on the new mouse design, which is the original custom knife that this is inspired by. So this may be not long for this world. So if this is appealing to you, then it might be time to pull the trigger. But what does pulling the trigger involve? It involves parting with, in Australia, at least $300. In America, at least $190. This is a pricey little knife for what is, a fairly little knife. I'm going to talk about what I like about the knife. I'm going to talk about what I don't like so much about the knife, and I'm going to form some conclusions about whether the Spyderco Techno is worth a purchase. Alrighty, so first up, I think it's a really nice design. It's kind of cool looking, it's kind of cute looking, but it's also not sort of in any way, how do we say this, poncy looking, or diminutive, or whatever those kind of descriptors are. I'm trying to avoid saying girly or anything like that, because you don't want to use those words as adjectives for negative stuff when you've got daughters. But it's not sort of, doesn't look like a lightweight. It doesn't look underdone, but it's still quite small and interesting. Let's go with the actual definition of cute, which is ugly yet interesting. That's probably applicable to most of Spyderco's designs, really. But yeah, it is a really nice looking design, and it kind of does cross over those lines between multi-occasion carry, I would suggest. So it's got a deep carry clip, so it can be carried rather discreetly, the wire clip by Spyderco. It's got titanium frame, so it's a bit posh looking. Maybe you could pass it off as a gentleman's knife. Gentleman's knives don't all have to be carbon fiber, despite what the makers are currently telling us. It's got this blue backspacer, which kind of makes it a little bit more interesting than some other of the Sleesh designs, which this one they chose to go with a good old black backspacer. There you go, black G10. Wish they hadn't. This is rather nice. I do quite like the blue, and of course there's a whole bunch of custom kits you can get to change this. So in terms of design, modification, all that sort of thing, really, really nice looking knife. I love the little blade. It's leaf shaped, pure Spyderco blade, but then they've managed to do it so it doesn't have as much of that Spyderco fatness. This hole is good for that. Bad for other things, but good for that, for keeping the knife profile low. So both in terms of practicality and in appearance, really, really nice design. Probably my favorite thing about the blade. Other thing I do like about it is the ergonomics. They're quite simple. It forms like a little thick, stout little rectangle in your hand, I guess, while still having enough chamfering to make it not a sharp knife by any sense. So really, really comfy. Your thumb just naturally sits, well, mine sits over this jimping. I guess maybe my hands are larger than whoever this was made for, but if you pull all the way back, I can get my hand on this jimping at the back here, which does a bit of a job at keeping you in place. There's some token jimping on the back spacer, which really is more just for a visual effect, I'd suggest. But anyway, yeah, really good, solid ergonomics for a small knife. You know, when you start getting bigger knives, you start getting, you know, proper, you know, hand-filling ergos, of course. But small knives, it is a little bit more of a delicate balance between having usability whilst also maintaining dexterity and a small footprint in your pocket. So very, very well done ergonomics. About as good as you can do with knives of this size. They haven't gone for a forward finger trowel, but there isn't a great deal of gap between your index and the commencement of the blade anyway. They've instead gone for a pretty much 4-finger grip. The other option is like the Pilar with the small knives. You often get the accentuated first finger groove and then your 3 spread out the back. This is fine for people who like this type of grip. I do. Lots of non-knife people don't particularly like having their finger this close to like the, you know, beginning of the blade ricasso there. Like they're not super fond of that. So I think it's a pretty safe choice. I think sort of knife that anyone could really put in hand and enjoy enough for its occasional use. Another thing I like is the general execution of the blade. They've chosen CTS XHP, which I've had extensive experience with, and it is a really good powder metallurgy steel. So it's, as far as my testing goes, it holds an edge longer than your S30s and your S35 VNs. It's also reasonably stainless. XHP is D2 steel, but you know, slightly modified and also homogenized through the powder metallurgy process. So you can more or less trust that the steel in this bit of the knife is going to be the same in terms of makeup as the steel in this bit of the knife. So whereas with your standard ingot steels and your casting and lots of those sorts of processes, you can sort of have the elements not as evenly distributed. So that process makes steels perform a fair bit better for sure. So really, really good steel XHP. I haven't had any issues. I actually put this one through a fair bit of work. I've done all the different jobs with it, done lot of food, a lot of rope cutting. I've done the wood and I've been sort of trying to chip it out a bit. I haven't been able to. Right now it's wearing a pretty decent Lansky edge, so not quite mirrored, but certainly getting, actually maybe it is a little bit, certainly getting there if it isn't fully mirrored. And that wasn't too hard to do either. I don't have any problems sharpening XHP. Some folks do. I'm not sure whether that's the machines or the skill sets they're using. I don't sharpen pocket knives on bench stones, so maybe it is really hard on a bench stone. But on a Lansky system, a Tormek system, an Apex, you know, whatever Pro, Super, KME system, whatever you're using, no worries at all. So good with the blade, good with its performance. It is a thicker blade, so you see how thick that is there. It really does make for quite a wedge-like cut, especially, so say look at the Sleesh Bowie next to it. Not the easiest to instantly start sort of preparing your food with, that's for sure. It'll do all those things providing the edge is sufficiently sharp, no problems at all. You need to kind of alter your cut. So say I'm cutting this cucumber up, right? You can get slices just fine, but you need to sort of arch your hand towards the like the actual edge, which is actually in contact with the actual surface. Actually, you need to actually keep that curve towards making sure it's in place, because it doesn't have the same amount of kind of, it doesn't just follow like a nice almost straight line. It actually does wedge out a fair bit, because that is, you know, that is fairly thick. That's getting towards, you know, I think it's probably about 0.19 millimeters, or 1.9, what is it? It'd be about 4.5 millimeters thick, 0.19 of an inch or whatever, 1900s, inches, just do my head in, sorry man. But yes, it's a thick blade, as you can see. Maybe I should just stop trying to do numbers and just start talking about how I feel. Anyway, so it is a thicker blade with some immediate adaptability required to be able to use it sort of as you've used any other pocket knife you've had, but being that, it is completely capable. And the thickness, I guess, makes it very robust, very stout, Feels very sort of trustworthy in hand overall. So really, really well done. So another thing I really like about this is the fit and finish. It comes from the Spyderco Taichung factory. So everything is rock solid, nicely done. Really, really nice musky stonewash sort of polish on the CTS XHP, similar to the same effect as they do on the Sleesh Bowie. Say compared to, like, say, just the standard machine finished on the Spidey Chef there. See more of the lines there, whereas this one, nice kind of polish. You almost be able to bounce this back and see me in there somehow. Anyway, really, really nice effect, and sort of that extra bit of effort. The spider hole seems to have been chamfered. I'm not sure if that was just the previous owner or not, but it's not as sharp as they often are from the Taichung. And the frame lock is just exactly how you'd want it. The lockup is just completely sound. The centering is just completely sound. There are no marks, knocks, dings, doofs, or whoopsies anywhere on the blade, so really, really well fit and finished, as you would expect for a knife that you pay this rather ridiculous amount of money for. Now, this is one of those things where this is a knife fan's knife for sure, because as we get into sort of the more less positive aspects of it, you certainly need to understand that this is an enthusiast's piece. I see comments all the time in my videos saying anyone who, and they're just these blanket people, I think they're just looking to pick fights with you all. Anyone who spends more than $80 on a knife is retarded, like was the other day in one of my videos. And it's just that whole thing, like, you're obviously in knife YouTube where people are obviously going to be doing that, so it's just that whole thing. But there is an element there that I guess you need to explain to folks. This might be more than the sum of its parts if you're a knife fan, but if you are just a purely pragmatic me want tool, me put tool in hand to cut, then yeah, you might not be getting your $300 worth. It's kind of more about the design and the fit and finish, and just the prestige even. Who knows, but it is kind of cool. It's unique, and that is definitely what you're paying for. But you are, yes, paying a whole lot of money for it, and especially when the Spidey Chef is actually cheaper and it's a fair bit more capable, in my opinion, with just as high level of fit and finish, albeit a different blade finish. Anyway, so yeah, in terms of faults, the one thing that I'm not super fond of, I love this wire clip. There seems to be a couple of different types of Spyderco wire clip. There seems to be this one, which kind of is anodized or something, and is just a little bit more stiff or robust than this one here. The Techno has a bit of a squishy clip, and it seems funny, but it definitely seems to be an actual thing. Other people have also come to this conclusion too. It's just a little bit on the squishy side, and it's not ever posed a security problem. It's just a bit funny. I think it might be how you hold the knife as well. You do feel it kind of squidging around in your palm and rubbing up against like that. So yeah, just as you use and adjust your grip while you use the knife, you do find that, I find that I do grind the clip around on the face of the titanium here. Haven't had any, hideous scratches or anything like that damaging my ridiculously expensive knife. But yeah, just something I thought I would note. And another thing, I can't go past these Sleesh designs without saying, if you're a left-hander, you really are shit out of luck with this knife, because not only is it a right-handed frame lock, so you can sort of do this, but you're going to struggle getting this one out. Actually, I'm trying. So Sleesh knives are not for you unless you start mastering the Spidey flicks and flops and that sort of thing. Yeah, they might just... They've made their beds by doing this, and they are just lying in them, not letting you fine left-handed folk easily access the knives. In terms of the action is completely fine. It's on a bronze phosphor washer, so if you can do Spidey flicks, you shouldn't have a problem at all. Although you can't do them if you're right-handed, really. So if you're left-handed, loves to Spidey flick a knife and just has to have a Techno, you should be able to do okay with this blade here. So that's the only thing, really. Squishy clip, really high price, which weighs into the considerations more about knife buying philosophy than quality or anything like that. And yeah, just not particularly left-handed friendly. If you are interested in this knife and you're like, that's just a bit strange and arty, I would suggest maybe giving a try to the CRKT Pilar. Very, very similar. Yeah, it's not a full flat grind, it's sort of like a saber. But overall, getting towards the same thickness in hand, sort of a little mini ergonomic, sort of box cutter style knife. This is in like all the cheaper versions of this. So the steel is 8CR13, the washers are Teflon, the frame is made of stainless steel, the backspace is made of like aluminium. It's all sort of a little bit of a level down. It's still a good frame look. It's still a very well finished knife, a great knife, one of the better knives this year, I would suggest. But yeah, just a little bit, you know, a little bit of a trial run perhaps if you're not sure how you'd feel about a knife this stout and chunky. So there you go. Anyway, Spyderco Techno. I really enjoy mine. I think I'm actually keeping it. I think I'm keeping my entire Sleesh trilogy. In fact, I think the one I like the least, and this is sacrilege, I know, to a lot of knife folks, I think the one I like the least is the Bowie. It just doesn't feel as either as unique as these other two. I just think these are stronger designs. This is a really, really nice knife. Really great general knife, you know, one of the best overall knives for sure. But best overall knife isn't particularly what I'm looking for. I like bits of character and variety and uniqueness. And yeah, these two really feel like they have it in spades. So yeah. Anyway, Spyderco Techno, well done, good game, well played. If you are a knife guy who drops big sums of money on knives, I would suggest giving it a chance.